The 2016 RR and RF are an evolution of the rsv4 models that I've had a love affair with since day one. The RF adding Öhlins suspension, forged aluminum wheels, and super pole graphic to an already sublime package. Aprilia has found a few extra horsepower for both models, tweaked the ergonomics, and refined the electronics for increased rideability over the duration of a race or track day, all using information and ideas gathered from Aprilia's racing department, which, oh by the way, has earned 4 of the last 5 World Superbike Championship manufacturer titles, 3 rider championships. Aprilia's product development manager, Piero Soati, recaps each of the changes, starting at the engine. This year the Superbike and Superstock motorcycle have to be closer to the production one, so you can change less things. One of those things is the airbox, so basically we developed a production airbox that is as close as possible to the former Superbike one. The most important thing with an airbox isn't the dimension, but the trajectory of the wind. In order to reduce losses, the trajectory of wind needs to be straight as possible, so on this airbox the air filter was moved from laying down where air had to make a corner to straight up and down, he reveals. If ever you were curious about how regulations and racing play a hand in the development of production motorcycles, here's your answer. The biggest changes for the 2016 rsv4 are inside the 65-degree V4 engine. Camshafts are lighter, as are the pistons, connecting rods, and upper crankcase. The bike is claimed to have 201 horsepower, at 13,000 RPM, at the crank, a 16 horsepower jump compared to the last model. The fixed funnels for the rsv4's variable intake system are shorter and the movable ones larger so as to not sacrifice mid-range torque. Further down, you'll find reshaped camshafts that are forged instead of cast for reduced weight, plus new valve springs and lighter caps. Titanium intake valves are larger, 33mm versus 32mm, while exhaust valves, 26mm, are now made from titanium rather than steel. As is the case with the 2015 Yamaha R1, combustion chambers are CNC machined, which keeps the compression ratio very constant for each cylinder and allows Aprilia to control the combustion in a better way. Soati says that this process absolutely adds to the production costs, but that it is also one of the most important changes for the engine. The rsv4's pistons, panel connecting rods, and upper engine case are all lighter, the latter now featuring an optimized ventilation system that reduces pumping losses. A completely new oil circuit uses check valves to bring oil to different points of the engine only when it's necessary, read, at higher revs. For example, with the gears, it's not necessary to have a very high flow of oil when you are going lower than 6,000 RPM, because there's not that much load then. So it makes a check and saves oil flow in these parts at lower RPM, Soati says. The rsv4's 65-degree V4 engine produces around 85 foot-pounds of torque, enough to make the bike want to wheelie practically everywhere if Aprilia left the geometry as is. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on your maturity level, they haven't, ultimately lowering the engine 5mm via the rsv4's adjustable engine mount system, and lengthening the swing arm by 13mm. The distance between swing arm pivot to the rear axle is actually just 4mm longer, but you can use all 13mm of added room on the adjuster if you'd like. Then, so as to not compromise agility, Aprilia changed the offset of the triple clamps from 30mm to 32mm, which subsequently reduced trail and bump mid-corner steering quickness. We also moved the axle 2mm backwards to position the front wheel in same position as before, Soati says. Aprilia lowered the center of gravity and lengthened the swing arm to counteract the effects of the added horsepower. The engine now sits in the lowest position available with Aprilia's adjustable engine mount system. Handling is not Ducati 1299, Panigale light but admirable, plus the rsv4 chassis provides more feedback than anything in the category when cranked over. The electronics were recalibrated for the same reason that the chassis was tweaked to counterbalance the V4's bump in power, but also as a result of what Aprilia had found in joint tests with its superbike team. There, it found that its racers preferred less engine braking and a smoother on/off throttle transition, changes that made the bike easier to ride during longer sessions. The ECU's roadmap was jettisoned for a race mode that's actually the smoothest of the three, with, again, less engine braking above 6,000 RPM and a more seamless on/off throttle transition for rider and tire conservation. Track and sport riding modes remain, each now granting access to all 201 horsepower, and only slight differences in the way that power is put down. The handlebars are taller and more flat, which takes some weight off of the rider's wrists, plus Aprilia has redesigned the front fairing so that it provides better wind protection. New rear mirrors are larger and house LED turn indicators, though they were removed for the track portion of our test, so no word on how they work just yet.